Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. Chrisley trial update. Jury reaches verdict. After less than 3 days of deliberations, the jury has come back with a verdict for Todd and Julie Chrisley's tax fraud case. How did they find the Chrisley Knows Best stars, guilty or innocent? Todd and Julie Chrisley have their day in court. After 3 years in limbo, Todd and Julie Chrisley finally had their day in court. After an indictment in 2019 on tax evasion charges, their trial started last month. Held in Atlanta, Georgia, the trial started on May 16, 2022. The couple denied the charges, entering a plea of not guilty. Todd Chrisley's mother, Nanny Faye, was called as a witness during the trial. The defense and prosecution rested after a weeks-long trial. The case went to the jury on Friday, June 3. On Tuesday, June 7, the jury came back with a verdict. Does their short deliberation mean good news or bad news for the Chrisleys? Chrisley trial update. Jury reaches a verdict. Forbes reports that Todd, Julie, and their accountant were indicted on 11 counts of tax evasion and bank fraud in 2019, and a superseding indictment came in 2022. How did the jury find? On June 7, the jury came back with a verdict of guilty on all charges. Their attorney released a statement about the verdict. The couple is disappointed in the jury's decision. What does it mean for the Chrisleys? Forbes reports that Todd and Julie Chrisley face decades in prison after the guilty verdict. Us Weekly notes that per their lawyer's statement, they plan to appeal the decision. The USA Network that hosts Chrisley Knows Best seemingly stood by the family during their legal woes. Shortly before the trial began in May, the network revealed plans for season 10 of the long-running reality show. Chrisley Knows Best returns with more episodes from Season 9 on Thursday, June 23. Season 10 will air later this year. The network has yet to react to the guilty verdict or share how it will affect the family's status with the network. Reality TV fans may recall that Bravo stars Teresa and Joe Giudice spent time in prison after being found guilty of similar charges. The Real Housewives of New Jersey OG was sentenced to 15 months, but served less than 12. Her husband served 3 years and was deported to Italy following his release from prison. Despite the scandalous charges, Bravo stood by Teresa, and she returned to headline Real Housewives of New Jersey after her prison stint. Will the same happen for Todd and Julie Chrisley? Only time will tell. The air in the Nashville courthouse felt thick enough to chew. Cameras flashed outside like a wildfire of curiosity, reporters jostling for position as if a celebrity wedding was taking place rather than the final hours of a long, bruising legal battle. Inside, the room was silent, too silent, as Todd and Julie Chrisley sat side by side at the defense table. Todd's suit was immaculate, his hair styled with the precision of a man refusing to let chaos steal his identity. Julie, elegant but visibly exhausted, kept her hands folded tightly in her lap. Their children, Savannah, Chase, and Grayson, occupied the front row, eyes locked on the double doors the jury would soon walk through. It had been weeks of testimony, weeks of accusations, weeks of the Chrisley family clinging to faith, humor, and the hope that the jury would see the truth as they understood it. But now the wait was almost over. Savannah's foot tapped nervously, her phone gripped in her hand. She'd updated fans, prayed with them, cried with them. But today even she could not find words. A court officer stepped forward. The jury has reached a verdict. Julie inhaled sharply. Todd, for once, had no witty comeback, no charming quip. He simply reached over and squeezed Julie's hand, his thumb brushing against hers in a silent promise. Whatever happens, we face it together. The jury enters. All 12 jurors filed in, avoiding eye contact with everyone except the judge. Their expressions were unreadable, stone masks hiding the truth of the fate they held. Judge Harper adjusted her glasses. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, have you reached a unanimous verdict? Yes, Your Honor. Savannah swallowed so hard she felt it scrape her throat. Chase leaned forward with his elbows on his knees, fingers interlocked as though he were physically holding himself together. The foreperson, a mild-mannered woman with silver hair and a neutral expression, stood with a slip of paper in her hands. The room held its breath. Count 1, conspiracy. On count 1, conspiracy to commit bank fraud. A pause. We find the defendants. Todd closed his eyes. Julie gripped the edge of the table. Guilty. A cry broke from someone in the back. Soft, muffled, hopeless. Savannah's hand flew to her mouth, tears already pooling. Chase muttered, "No, no, no." Under his breath, the words tumbling out uncontrolled. Grayson blinked rapidly, face pale. Todd opened his eyes. A single tear clung to his lower lash but didn't fall. Julie let out a shaky exhale, her lips trembling but unbroken. On count 2, guilty. Julie's breath hitched. Todd placed his arm around her shoulders protectively. Savannah reached forward, her voice a choked whisper to her brothers. We've been through worse. We'll get through this too. But her hands were shaking. Count 3, wire fraud. On count 3, guilty. A sob echoed somewhere in the back row. Even the judge's face tightened, as if weighed down by the emotional gravity of the moment. Todd's attorney put a steady hand on his shoulder. Todd nodded, but his jaw clenched with a pain he could not swallow. The final counts. One after another, the word guilty dropped like a hammer, each blow heavier than the last. By the time the final count was read, the room buzzed with whispered reactions: shock, disbelief, support, judgment. But the noise faded behind the Chrisleys like a distant storm. Their world had narrowed to the small circle of chairs, the polished wooden table, and the reality sinking around them like cement. Judge Harper cleared her throat. Sentencing will be scheduled for a later date. The defendants remain free on bond. Todd let out a slow, controlled breath. Well, he whispered to Julie, we always said God doesn't give us what we want, He gives us what we need. Julie managed a fragile smile. I just wish what we need didn't hurt so much. Outside the courthouse. The family moved through the hall in a tight formation, their attorney guiding them forward. When they stepped outside, the world erupted, shouts, cameras, microphones thrust toward them. Julie, how do you feel about the verdict? Todd, do you still claim innocence? Savannah, will you speak to fans? What happens now for the Chrisley family? Savannah stepped forward first, blinking into the blinding lights. She brushed away tears but kept her posture strong. We're heartbroken, she began, voice trembling but sincere. But we're not defeated. My parents are the strongest people I know. We believe in justice and we believe in our God. Our journey isn't over. The crowd erupted again. Todd slipped an arm around his daughter. His voice was steady, measured, unmistakably Chrisley. We respect the court, but we disagree with the verdict. This is not the end of our story. This is another chapter. And like every chapter, we will face it with faith, dignity, and, yes, even humor. A reporter shouted, Do you regret anything, Todd? He turned slightly, eyes sharper now. I regret that my family has to hurt. Nothing else. Julie stepped up beside him, her normally warm tone now threaded with resolve. We appreciate those who have supported us. We're going to keep fighting. And we're going to keep loving our family through everything. Chase, who had been quiet until now, muttered just loud enough for cameras to catch. People can say what they want. We know who we are. Savannah nodded fiercely. And we will rise. Later that night, hours after the courthouse had emptied, after the cameras had shut off, after fans and critics alike had returned to their routines, the Chrisley home was dim and quiet. Todd sat on the couch, elbows on his knees, staring at the verdict papers on the coffee table. Julie curled beside him, resting her head gently on his shoulder. Whatever comes next, she murmured, we'll face it together. Todd kissed the top of her head. Always. Savannah stood in the doorway, watching them with a mix of pain and pride. She didn't interrupt. She didn't need to. Her family was hurting, but they were together. In the silence of the Tennessee night, the Chrisleys drew strength not from the verdict, not from the headlines, but from the unbreakable bond between them. Their story was far from over. And they knew it.